Here's the thing. Most people roll straight from sleep into a storm. They grab the phone, and in less than 60 seconds, their attention is sold to the highest bidder. Notifications, headlines, inboxes, tiny addictive jolts that look like momentum but actually fracture it. You don't wake up to write your day, you wake up to read someone else's script. If that's you, it's not a moral failing, it's just an operating system you never chose. I want you to choose, because the first hour is not a warm-up lap, it's the architect's hour. It's where you lay the foundation for everything that comes after. If you waste it on noise, the day inherits that noise. If you use it on thinking, the day inherits that clarity. Think about the math of attention. You start with a full charge. Every decision, every ping, every opinion siphons voltage from the battery. If the first things you do are reactive, you hand the throttle to chaos. But if the first things you do are deliberate silence, one true priority, creation, you're telling your brain who's driving. You're telling it, we're not spectators today, we're builders. There's a reason great founders protect the morning like a monk guards a bell. It's because they understand that deep work isn't a luxury, it's the source code. You can fill your calendar with meetings and call it progress. You can reply to email and feel productive. But progress without direction is motion sickness. The morning is where you set direction. Picture 2 mornings. In the first, you wake, you scroll, you skim, 45 minutes, gone. Your mind is full and your day is already crowded. In the second, you wake, you breathe, you write the one problem you'll bend the day toward. No noise, no consumption, just intention. Same person, same day, 2 different universes. And here's a truth I had to learn the hard way. The day is not the unit, the morning is. If you win the first 60 minutes, you don't have to win willpower for the next 12 hours. Momentum does the lifting. You don't need to fight for focus. You glide on it. That's why I call it an edge, because a clean first hour gives you an unfair advantage over your past self. So let's be blunt. If your mornings feel hijacked, it's not because you lack discipline. It's because your environment is tuned for reaction. The fix is simple, not easy. Design a morning so quiet that your best ideas can find you. Treat the first hour like an empty white wall in a design studio. Anything you allow onto that wall should earn its place. Everything else waits outside. Your future is cash flowed by your mornings. Invest them poorly and you pay interest all day. Invest them wisely, and compounding focus turns into compounding results. If you're tired of watching your potential stall, don't overhaul your life. Overhaul the first hour. Think first, then build. It turns out the best mornings aren't about doing more, they're about thinking better. A lot of people confuse activity for clarity. They wake up and lunge into tasks, trying to outrun the fog. But thinking is not a luxury you get to when you're done doing. Thinking is the work. The most expensive mistakes in your life came from speed without thought. When you look at the builders who changed our tools, our habits, our culture, you'll notice something. They prioritize solitude. They use the morning like a drafting table. They don't ask, what can I tackle? They ask, what is the essential problem and what is the cleanest way to solve it for the user? That question doesn't survive in a crowded mind. It needs air. It needs stillness. There's a story I return to often. Early in his career, a certain founder dropped out of college but stayed on campus to audit classes that fed his curiosity. One of them was calligraphy, totally impractical, apparently irrelevant. Years later, that fascination with typefaces and spacing informed the design language of a computer that changed expectations for elegance and software. The point is simple. Thinking time seems inefficient until it compounds into taste, and taste is a force multiplier. You don't stumble into taste during a commute between notifications. You cultivate it in quiet hours, asking better questions than the market asks of you. Morning thinking is not just about ideas, it's about pruning. Focus doesn't come from adding things, it comes from saying no to 1,000 things that would make the product worse. The morning is where you make those cuts before the day tries to sneak them back in. You examine your priorities like a curator. Does this belong in the gallery or is it clutter? If you don't make those decisions early, your inbox will make them for you. Ask yourself, what is the simplest expression of what I'm trying to build? What's the sentence that would make a user's eyes light up? If you can't say it cleanly at 7 a.m., you won't be able to say it cleanly at 7 p.m. The morning is honest. It reveals whether you have a story or just a to-do list. And here's one more thing. Thinking first doesn't slow you down, it accelerates you. A well-aimed day beats a busy day. Clarity saves you from rewriting code at midnight, from revising decks 12 times, from apologizing to customers for features they didn't ask for. You can either pay up front with quiet thinking or pay later with chaos. The morning sends the invoice either way. The Morning Edge framework. Protect silence, set one priority, create before. Consume frameworks are only useful if they're ruthless. This one is 3 steps, no wiggle room. If you want your mornings to become a competitive advantage, this is your operating system. Protect silence. Set one priority. Create before consume. Protect silence. That means your phone sleeps in another room. That means no email, no headlines, no chat, no scrolling. The world will offer you urgency. You offer it a closed door. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the absence of requests. Protect it like it's oxygen, because it is. How? Set your environment the night before. Put your devices on airplane mode. Leave a notebook open to a blank page on your desk. Place a single pen next to it as a promise to yourself. Keep water nearby. If you need coffee or tea, set it up so all you do is press a button. Your morning should feel like sliding, not climbing. The more friction you remove, the easier it is to protect silence. Set one priority. Not 5, not 3, 1. You don't need a perfect day, you need a decisive one. Ask, what is the one problem if solved today would make everything else easier or irrelevant? Write it as a command in present tense. Ship user onboarding test. Outline V1 spec. Draft outreach to 5 key partners. Sketch hero flow. If you can't articulate the one, you haven't thought enough. This is where you practice focus as a craft. You can keep a longer list for later, but your morning doesn't care about it. The quality of your day is the quality of your first priority. Choose something that moves the needle, not something that makes you feel busy. The priority should be real work, not meta work. If you find yourself choosing organized notes rather than write copy, you're hiding. Don't hide. Create before consume. This is non-negotiable. Do not take in information until you have shipped something. It can be small, a paragraph, a sketch, a design variant, a list of user questions, a decision memo, but it must be created by you, from your brain to the page or screen. Why? Because creation forces synthesis. Consumption pretends to. If you consume first, you let other people's thinking set your ceiling. If you create first, you set your own. Here's a simple cadence that works. 20 minutes of thinking on paper, 40 minutes of building or drafting, 10 minutes to refine and name what you've made, 90 minutes total. If that's too ambitious for your current life, start at 30, 10155. The size matters less than the order. Silence, one priority, create. Then, and only then, do you open the gates and let the world in. Your brain will resist. It will whisper that you need to check in case something is on fire. You don't. If a building is burning, they'll call you. Everything else can wait until you've made a dent. Treat your attention like a product with a tight launch window. Protect it until you've shipped. One more nuance. Create doesn't just mean writing or coding, it means decisions. A crisp decision is a creative act. If your morning produces a real decision, we're killing this feature, we're doubling down on that one, you've created clarity. That counts. But you must capture it somewhere concrete. A decision that lives only in your head dies before lunch. If this framework resonates, if you're tired of letting mornings leak away into other people's agendas, then show it. Subscribe to this channel, because we're gathering people who think differently, people who are ready to take ownership of their first hour and, by extension, their trajectory. Join the group that builds, not just reads about building. Vision at Dawn, a case study in designing the day. Let me give you a picture of how mornings can change the arc of a company. When you study the early days of iconic products, you don't just see engineers and designers working late. You see founders carving quiet time early. Those were the hours when vision got sharpened, roadmaps got simplified, and language crucial. Human language got crafted. Consider a product that redefined the expectations for personal computing. What made it different wasn't only the hardware or the software, it was the insistence on taste. The founder behind it paid attention to things like typography, spacing, the feel of interface elements, details that seemed trivial until they became the standard. That taste didn't arrive fully formed in a crowded afternoon meeting. It was cultivated in quiet mornings, where the question wasn't, what features can we add, but what will vanish so the essential can be seen. Go deeper. When this founder returned to a company that had lost its way, the calendar filled with reviews and debates, but beneath the visible schedule was a private discipline. Early hours to think, to sketch narratives, to draft what the keynote would really promise and how the product would really speak. Morning notes became team direction. The cadence went something like this: protect silence, ask who is this for? Write the single sentence the user should feel. Then spend the day aligning teams around that sentence. That was the engine. A company is a conversation. Mornings write the script. There's another detail. Long walks. Not doom scrolling on a couch, walks. That's where hard problems got air. The morning walk with a collaborator or alone replaced noisy inputs with honest thinking. Does this solve a real pain or is it a demo? Is this delight or is it decoration? Those are morning questions. And when the answers were clear, meetings later in the day were simpler. Not endless arguments, but a series of yes and no rooted in a morning decision. And let's talk about getting fired, because it's relevant. When you're stripped of a role you once thought defined you, your mornings can become either a refuge or a revenge tour. The better choice is refuge. After the public fall, the next chapter was not powered by rage emails. It was powered by building, again, new teams, new products, even a new studio focused on storytelling. Mornings regained their original purpose, thinking and making from first principles. That's when the work sings again. That's when you rediscover the why, not the title. What about calligraphy? That class talk about. Impractical was actually a morning in disguise. It trained the eye to slow down, to notice the distance between letters, the curve of a serif, the weight of white space. Years later, that slowness became speed. It allowed a product to communicate without shouting. It turns out that taste acquired in quiet hours is a technology in its own right. It differentiates you when others are chasing features. So when I say mornings decide your future, I'm not being poetic, I'm being practical. The companies that win don't just outwork, they outfocus. They choose what not to do. They craft language that pulls teams into alignment. And the origin point for that selection and that language is the morning. You can mirror that discipline. You don't need a budget to protect silence. You need a door that closes and the courage to close it. Here's a simple exercise used by builders who care deeply about product. At dawn, write the press release for a feature that doesn't exist yet. 1 page. Headline, subhead, 3 benefits, 1 quote from a fictional customer. Do this before a single wireframe. If the page is hard to write, the product will be hard to love. If the page sings, your day just got simpler. You now know what you're building and what you're not. That's a morning win worth 10 meetings. The 30-day Morning Edge Challenge. You don't need a new identity to change your mornings. You need a protocol. For the next 30 days, run this experiment. Treat it like a product sprint for your life. You will feel resistance. Good, that means you found a lever that matters. Week 1, design the environment. Days 1-7, objective, make silence the default. The night before ritual. Write tomorrow's 1 priority on a note card. Place it where you'll see it immediately upon waking. Set your phone to airplane mode and leave it in another room. Close all laptop tabs. Put a notebook and pen at your morning spot. Pre-fill a glass of water. Wake cue. Avoid alarms that mimic a fire drill. Use a simple tone. When it rings, sit up. Feet to the floor. Stand. Don't hesitate long enough to negotiate with your comfort. Water plus breath. 3 minutes. Drink. Then take 10 slow breaths, eyes open, counting each exhale. You're not meditating to check a box. You're switching operating systems from reactive to deliberate. Silence rule. For the first hour, no inputs, no phone, no email, no news, no podcasts. The room is a studio, not a newsroom. Thinking on paper, 10-20 minutes. Write 3 prompts. What am I building and why? What will I say no to today? What would a user thank me for by tonight? Short answers. Clarity beats poetry. Optional morning walk, 10-20 minutes. No headphones. Let boredom arrive. Boredom is pre-insight. Carry a small card. If an idea lands, capture it. Then return to the studio. The metric for week 1 is binary. Did I protect silence for the first hour? Score it daily. Aim for 5/7. If you fail, don't spiral. Investigate. Where did noise sneak in? Patch that leak at night. Week 2, 1 priority. Ship days 8-14. Objective, convert clarity into output. Choose 1 priority nightly. It must be shippable within the first hour. If your main task will take longer, choose a slice. You can finish outline, decision, proof of concept, 60-minute sprint. Use a simple timer. Work on the priority and nothing else. If you get stuck, write the stuckness. I don't know the user's real pain here. Then ask what would reveal it. Maybe a 3-question user message you can draft now. Name the output. 5 minutes. When the timer ends, give your work a name and save it where you can find it. A named artifact beats an amorphous effort. Post-sprint review, 5 minutes. Answer, what did I learn? What will I do differently tomorrow morning? Keep it to 3 sentences. The metric for week 2 is output count. How many named artifacts did you ship this week? Aim for 5. Feel the compounding effect of small, real progress before the world wakes. Week 3, sharpen taste days, 15-21. Objective, elevate quality by pruning. Morning audit. Look at yesterday's artifact and ask, what would make this simpler? What should I kill? Remove at least 1 element. Simplicity is subtraction. Language pass. Write a 1-sentence description a non-expert could understand. If it takes more than a tweet, you haven't thought enough. Keep rewriting until it lands. Comparison without envy. Choose 1 product you admire not to copy but to calibrate your bar for craft. Ask, what's the taste I'm missing? Then choose 1 thing to improve in your work today. No, practice. Write 2 things you will explicitly decline today. Share them with your team if relevant. Focus is saying no repeatedly to things that make you feel productive but make the product worse. Number of cuts made. Celebrate removals. Each no is a yes to something that matters. Week 4, scale the habit, days 20-30. Objective, make morning momentum automatic. Build a personal review. Every 7th day, read your 30 days of notes. Extract 3 principles that worked and 2 friction points to fix. Write a morning manifest. 5 sentences that define how you run your first hour. Teach it. Share your framework with 1 person, teammate, friend, partner. Teaching forces clarity and keeps you honest. If you can't explain your morning, you don't own it yet. Add a second creative block, optional. If your life allows, add a second 45-minute creation block later in the day as a bonus. Bookend the day with making. Protect the Sabbath. Choose 1 day to let the brain wander without goals. Walk. Read a physical book. Cook. This is not laziness. It's maintenance for curiosity. Final metric, streak integrity. How many days did you honor the first hour? What changed? What did you build that didn't exist? On day 1, write it down. Don't trust memory. Memory edits the story in your favor. By the end of 30 days, you will have done more than stack hours. You will have installed an edge. The old morning reactive, jittery, hijacked will feel foreign. You'll crave the quiet because it gave you back your agency, and once you felt that, you won't trade it for scrolling. You'll protect it with the same ferocity you protect your best work. The art of saying no so you can say yes to the morning. Let's address the saboteur. People-pleasing disguised as productivity. Your mornings get stolen not only by apps, but by obligations you never agreed to with intention. meetings you don't need to be in, threads you don't need to reply to, updates you don't need to read. Saying yes feels generous, it's actually expensive. You pay in attention, you pay with the first hour. Focus is not a mood, it's a series of trade-offs. If you want the morning, you must decide what you'll disappoint. You can't make a masterpiece and keep everyone comfortable. Builders who create insanely great work that makes users feel something, guard their energy like a hawk. They do it by being clear about what gets a no. Here are 3 scripts you can use to buy your mornings back: the deflect and deliver. I won't be on email before 10 a.m. If you need me urgently, text me the word urgent and your single question. Otherwise, I'll get back to you after I ship my morning priority. This sets expectations without drama. The calendar gatekeeper. I'm running deep work blocks 7-9 a.m. daily. If we need to meet, propose 10, 30, 12, or 2-4. Now your calendar reflects your values. You've made the morning off limits for low-leverage tasks. The prioritization mirror. When asked to add a task before you've done your morning priority, reply, happy to consider. Which current task should we deprioritize? Make the cost visible. Most requests die under the weight of their own vagueness. You might worry that saying no makes you difficult. Good. You're not here to be easy. You're here to be effective. And the flip side is equally true. Once you consistently protect your morning, you'll be shockingly generous in the afternoon. Why? Because you won the day early. You're no longer scrambling. You can over-deliver for others without undercutting yourself. There's another no that matters, saying no to mediocre inputs. If you open your morning to low-quality information, you'll think low-quality thoughts. Curate ruthlessly. Choose a few voices worth learning from and ignore the rest. Curiosity is fuel, but garbage in is garbage out. Save your best attention for primary sources, your users, your team, your own prototypes. The meta point is this: greatness is subtraction. We fantasize about adding habits, tools, features. But the difference between good and great is often what you remove. Remove the notification that has trained you to twitch. Remove the meeting that exists because it existed. Remove the guilt that says you owe your morning to the marketplace. You don't. You owe it to the work. Now, if these words hit a nerve, if you feel that friction between who you are and what you're capable of, channel it. Subscribe and lean in with us. We are building a community that refuses to drift into the day. We decide, we craft, we ship, we say no so our yes can mean something. One more thing, stay hungry, stay foolish. At dawn, I want to leave you with a paradox that frees you. The morning is where you take yourself seriously and your ego lightly. You take the work seriously because you only get so many days. Time is not just passing, it's evaporating. The morning reminds you that you are finite and that finitude is a gift. It puts a healthy pressure on your choices. But you take your ego lightly because the best ideas often look foolish at first, especially to your own inner critic. That calligraphy class, the one everyone thought was impractical, it seeded a revolution in taste. That firing, the one that could have ended a career, it opened a decade of experiments that later fed a comeback. That studio, built for telling stories, it reshaped an industry. None of that unfolds if mornings are surrendered to noise. All of that becomes possible if mornings are spent thinking, choosing, and creating before the world tells you what matters. So stay hungry, not for novelty, but for quality. Hunger for mornings where you can hear yourself think, where you can feel the edges of a hard problem and push into it without flinching. Stay foolish, not by ignoring reality, but by refusing the cynicism that says your first hour can't be yours. It can, it must. Because the people who change things aren't necessarily smarter. They're more stubborn about protecting the time when their best thinking happens. Tomorrow, when you wake up, don't perform the old script. Don't reach for the small screen to let strangers decide your mind. Sit up, breathe, write the one sentence that will pull your day into alignment. Then make something. However small, however imperfect, make something. Give the day a center of gravity so strong that distractions orbit it instead of knocking you off course. If you fall off, begin again. There is nothing sacred about yesterday's streak. The only sacred thing is the decision you make at dawn. Make it with conviction, make it with taste. Make it with the audacity to say, this hour belongs to building. And now the close. The journey doesn't end here. If you're committed to putting a dent in the universe one focused morning at a time, subscribe and press the like button to join the movement. Then, shut the noise out, pick your one priority, and go do something wonderful.